Well, everybody, welcome to a new edition of the Wandering Yuki Cheese Cafe. So just in case you're wondering, no, I'm not wandering the streets of Montreal today. I'm coming to you from my backyard to do a different kind of episode. Because one thing I've mentioned a lot is, as much as I enjoy wandering the streets of the city to find new coffee shops, bars, restaurants, and etc., I always have to remind myself that this channel first got started in 2020 and 2021 during the COVID pandemic when I was mostly at home and we couldn't really go anywhere. And I was using that to show off my cooking for recipes from start to finish and barbecuing, along with some other house projects, which included me insulating an attic, like showing you how you could add some extra insulation to save on your energy bills, how to do some various plumbing jobs to restore a bathroom, painting, drywall work, even something like changing a light fixture, which is pretty easy to do. And if you're a homeowner like me, you try to learn how to do these things yourself to add a new skill and save money at the same time. But one of those projects I also did back then was planting a garden for myself in my backyard. I recorded that back in May 2021, and I'll put a card in the top right corner for you if you want to see that one again as well. But the reality too is, in the time since I recorded that initial episode, I did gain a lot more subscribers, more viewers, and my shooting style had changed a lot since then. So I thought that for 2025, I can revisit that episode again and show you what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to plant a nice garden here, explain a little bit about my process, and maybe give a few tips. Full disclosure, I am not an expert, and this is not going to be a whole encyclopedia of how to get the ideal planting for you. There's a lot more information and more videos on YouTube that explain it much better than me. I'm just a homeowner that likes to garden, and I want to share with everyone. So that's what we're going to be doing today. But before we do that, here's my suggestion for you too. Click that subscribe button below and put the notification bell on, because that way, if there's a new video ready to view, you're going to get a pop-up on your phone. Most likely my shorts that come at random intervals, but especially new full episodes that come every Friday at 5 p.m. Also, give me a thumbs up. The more likes I get, the more these videos are promoted across the YouTube algorithm, so that means you're helping me a lot more than usual. And just for fun, I'm going to kind of make this an old school Wandering Yuki episode where I'll be using some video game music instead of my usual soundtrack to my life. Because I have some retro gamers who probably watch this video too, let's make this fun. Listen to the background music, see if you can identify it, and leave it in the comments section. Why? Well, I figured I'd want to get some kind of interaction over there. If you like the game, or if you think you know which game it comes from, post it. But for now, let's get started. Now, let me give you a recap in case you don't remember that other episode or you haven't clicked on it. Back when I first moved into the house, most of my garden was just this pile of dirt, peat, whatever it was, surrounded by Unistone and various stones. And one of the things I ended up doing in 2020 was I removed those stones and made myself these little boxes. All it took was these stones here that you can use to put in a 2x6, which means that it's about 5¼ feet high. Because, yep, 2x6 is not going to be 6 inches long, it's going to be 5¼ There's a reason for that, but it's pretty easy to do. You just dig around, place it in, cut what you need, and then you're good to go. It's not perfect because I can see there's some of these pieces of wood that are sticking up because I guess I didn't even out the soil underneath, and even some of the cuts are kind of wonky. Before I got myself a circular saw. I'm guessing even one day I could probably redo this, but you know, it still serves its purpose. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be practical sometimes. So, there's even some other stuff too that are going to be growing unexpectedly. Every year I like to do something experimental in addition to what I know is going to grow best in here. I tried to put an asparagus plant, and sadly it didn't seem to grow at all last year, but the good news is that I left it in, and somehow like after the winter, it's starting to regrow here, and now I may get some luck and be able to get some yield too. It's kind of tricky sometimes because some weathers or seasons that you get, the weather's not going to cooperate. Like you get too much rain, it's going to be too bad for your cucumbers. There's a lot of intricacies when it comes to that. I even got some onion bulbs, mostly onion bulbs in here, and probably in the corner too. Although I seem to remember I got some garlic that I planted. I don't recall if I left the bulbs in there and then they just regrew. I don't know, it's a wait and see kind of thing. Oh yeah, by the way, if you want to see that episode, I'll put in the top right corner for you how to plant a garlic patch, because that was the very first full episode of the Wanayuki Cheese Cafe. Yep, a little piece of history over there. I'm going to use this at the same time to show off some of my old content. And this box over here is now my herb garden. Earlier years I used to use this section for just flowers, but I figured over time that if I'm going to be using herbs, your best bet is to plant them directly in the ground because you're going to get maximum growth. Case in point, this bit of Italian oregano that I had, I planted it I feel like 2020, 2021, but it regrew into this magnificent beast over here, so it's always going to give me a good yield every single year. And this actually is a rosemary. I'll admit, I don't really use rosemary as much in my cooking, just dry rosemary, but my office was giving something away for Earth Day where you could get some basil or rosemary and for free and put it in your backyard. I took advantage of that and planted that before my typical planting season. So that's an idea of what I like to do. Oh, one more thing. I have a lot of maple trees here, so you will see a lot of these things around, and I know if I was to throw it up, okay, it didn't work, but I always used to remember throwing that as a kid, and it always amused me that it would be spinning like a helicopter. But the thing is that if you're not careful, you're going to see these things coming out of your garden. If you find them, pull them out, because otherwise you're just going to get some potential trees growing where they shouldn't be growing. Of course, that's not to say that I don't want to have trees there, because some of these that you see in the background, they are the result of some of those little plants that grew, but I kind of like the way they looked and added a little shade here, so that's why I kept it. And actually this one here has probably been around for a good, I would say 10, maybe 11 years, and that's the result of it. Give it time and it's going to become a beast like this. But I've spoken enough. I'm going to get started on the planting. Wow, more of these things growing. You really got to be careful with this kind of stuff. So when you're doing your own garden, if you're going to be doing this from scratch, it's going to take a lot of bags of soil to be able to get this enough to plant and be able to get it deep. In my case, I had plenty of soil because I built it up over years. And the only thing to remember too is that over time, because of movement, rain, or whatever else, this is going to get a little bit compact and then maybe be hard to grow. Because when you have compacted soil, that makes it hard for water or like rain to be able to get to the roots at the bottom. So you really want to keep this loosened up. It's the same principle as if you're going to be doing some lawn care, because if you're planting grass, but you don't have enough passage for water to get through, it's not going to grow, even if you put a layer of topsoil on it. Which, by the way, I did do a video like years ago about how to plant your own grass or redo a lawn, and I'll put a card in the top right corner for you to watch that. Okay, so I got some old random roots over here, most likely from mint leaves. As much as I like mint, I always find that it's very invasive. Like once you plant it, it is going to be growing pretty strongly, so you might get it growing somewhere where it's not supposed to. I always remember growing up at my parents' house that if I was going to be doing some weed pulling around the garden or the shed, that, you know, we always used to have some random mint leaves that were growing, and I never understood why. At the time I wasn't sure, but now I think I get it. It's only because it was probably planted by the previous owners years ago, and it kind of got out of hand and out of control, so that was the result of it. Okay, so this looks good, but if you're like me and you want to have a little extra soil for good measure, this is what I like to use. I got this at Costco. They probably changed bags since I've used it over the years, but it's the same thing. It's like an all-purpose landscaping mix, or like a Pro Series planting soil. You get soil in here, but also comes with sand, peat, sometimes compost in there too. When you're talking compost, it could mean like leaves, you know, tree bark, maybe some old dry leaves there. Because the reason you have that is that you want to have a mulch in your soil. Same principle if you're going to be doing grass. What mulch does is it retains water, so it's going to hold it in and let it stay moist. It's the same reason why some people in their garden would take old grass clippings and, you know, put it on top of their soil, or also for other types of gardens where you're going to be you know, adding some wood chips in there that are colored. They're decorative, they look nice, but the main reason is again to hold moisture so that on the really hot days of summer, it's not going to evaporate. All right. Now obviously I'm not going to be putting too much of the soil because this part of the garden is actually pretty nice. I'm just going to be adding like a small top layer of it to get some added nutrients. But I think we're going to take these 2 bags and spread them all across the rest of the garden. And I think I have some other flower beds I can use this on because that soil probably got really compacted over time. And it didn't help too that I was doing some, like throwing my old barbecue ashes over there. It's like hardwood that I use, no chemicals, but still, I want to have more dirt that grows there instead of hardwood. There we go. So I'll add a little bit more and then do my rounds for the rest of the garden. Speaking of plants that have regrown over the years, I feel like I planted a chive here and it just kept, blooming, going pretty big over time. So I don't really use chive as much, but I have fond memories of having a chive plant at my parents' place, and then we'd just be picking it off and chewing on it for the heck of it. But I feel like it's grown even further than that because on the other side of the border, I seem like I have either onions or chive that have really grown into the lawn. So I might have to do a little bit of trimming right now to get this all taken care of. But that'll be for a little bit later on. Now we got all the soil spread out, a little bit more loosening up. That back end where I have all my onion, garlic, or mystery stuff, that's gonna be off limits for now until I figure out what the heck's going on. But what I'll do first is I'll give you an idea of what I'm gonna be planting once again. Very similar to my setup over here. I'm not gonna show you any flowers because that's gonna be for a little later in the video. So, I'm gonna have over here Sweet 100 red cherry tomatoes. I don't know why they call it Sweet 100, but 100 isn't quite the age to reach. It'll be a centenaire like your George Burns. I know, outdated reference. But these are nice. If you want to have tomato, but not necessarily the big ones, they're pretty nice to just pick off as they ripen up. But I'm also going to have other tomato plants here too. I like having these regular ones. Like we used to get beefsteak, but I got big beef that come in a pack of 5 over here, and then I'm going to add them to another part of the garden. But there is a few precautions you have to take when it comes to planting these things, and I'll explain it a little bit further. Next up is going to be some Lebanese cucumber. It's a small pot. It comes with 4 stems, and you spread these out, but you got to make sure you have it with a trellis because as they grow, they're going to go pretty long, like a long vine, and what happens is these things are going to latch onto the trellis, so it gives it a little bit of hanging, and then you'll be able to have your cucumbers hanging from that. I like having these. I like doing my own pickles in there, but we'll see if these actually turn out great for it. Next up is, outside of the flowers, is going to be, yes, coriander is going to be one of those things I add. Goes good in Mexican cuisine, sometimes some pizzas, some salads, and it's all around all right. And once again, I always like to point out, I hate how on dating apps, it always feels like a red flag is someone who likes coriander. They say swipe left or please reject if you like it. Like really, that's your deal breaker? What about, getting together, sharing the same values, making sure you're on the same page with how you want to go through life? Liking coriander, liking pineapple on your pizza. Anyways, I talked about that before. I'm not going to keep ranting. I'm also going to be doing some basil. So it's going to be 2 types of basil that I have here. I've got sweet leaf basil, or sweet basil. I said sweet leaf like I'm a Black Sabbath or something. But whenever you think basil and you see it in stores, this is the one that they usually get. But there's also another one, like there's a whole variety of basils I never really realized, like some kind of blue Japanese one, and this thing, it's called Thai basil. Whether there's going to be a different flavor in it, I have no idea at all, but we'll figure it out as time goes on. Okay, so there's going to be a few more things. Flowers over here. I also got myself romaine lettuce. This, I have 5 heads of it, and it's one of those things that no matter where I plant it or what I plant, this is consistent and always comes out nice. And it's a big reason I have that chicken wire around there with the bamboo, because while animals might risk eating some of these plants, I get a lot of rabbits and they're notorious for chewing on my lettuce. Having that fence is going to deter them from wanting to eat that stuff. Then, dill. Since I was talking about pickles, I like to have some dill for when I make them, because I use dill seed in my recipe, but you could also use fresh dill, which is also going to come out even nicer. Oh yes, I do have a card for that on the top right corner, because I have shown you in the past how to make your pickles from A to Z. Very straightforward. Doesn't involve a huge production like with my parents, but I guess, you know, old school Ukrainian is the same way like old school Italian when it comes to tomato sauce. It becomes a whole day process because you're probably doing industrial quantities. And then the next thing I'm going to be doing is jalapeno pepper. Actually I have 4 plants in here, so it's a bit more than I expected it to. I like these, but I have to take precaution when I plant them, because I know that depending on where I leave them, if it doesn't get enough light, it's not going to be able to grow as much. I did realize once when I had it in the backside where there was less sunlight and more shade, that I only got 1 or 2 peppers, versus coming into the front where there's a lot more sun, you get at least a dozen of them. The best use for these is if you're making a jambalaya for yourself, because that's a very spicy meal. And once again, I'll put a card in the top right corner and you can watch that one too. And my last thing I'm going to be planting is Moroccan mint. I know, I probably still have some mint leaves that are growing around, but I want to have a little bit extra here just in case and make it a bit more like neat. This is perfect if I want to be, making some tea for myself, because I love mint tea, fresh mint tea especially, and it's pretty nice to have in the evening. I also have these geraniums here, like it's a citronella geranium. Probably not going to be planting anything in particular except maybe in the back, only because I get a lot of mosquitoes around here, and I haven't figured out the cause yet, if it's because of the shade, size of my shrubs, or some other kind of, I don't know, maybe there's a pond here that they're driven to. It's maybe a way to prevent them from sticking around, because when you have this, you rub it on yourself, they hate it. And in fact, I'd be willing to bet I'm getting mosquito bites as I'm speaking right now. So there you have it. That's going to be the vegetable and herb garden here. Anything else for flowers, we'll get to a little bit later. This is going to be my general layout. I feel like that if I was to put my mint over here, it's a good spot because it's consistent with all the other mint plants that are around. But one thing I've actually forgot about is that there is some other mint growing in here. It's not my Moroccan mint. This is actually After Eight mint. I think I might have planted that once to get a diversity of mints here, but I was also thinking about my mom, because I know years ago I put that in since it was one of her favorite types of chocolates. After Eight mints, you know, chocolate with a bit of mint in there, and it was kind of nice to have. But if ever I do want to have a different kind of mint, it's there. So what I'm trying to do is get a deep enough hole in here so that I'm able to put it in well enough that it's going to grow. What the? Ugh. Still some leftover roots in here. Is that from the... What is this? I'll figure it out later. So now that I got a deep enough hole, just go further in, plant it, and then bury it over here. I don't think I have to worry too much about water, because it is going to be raining today. At least that's in the forecast, so it's going to be nourishing all of this as we go along. So what am I going to do next? Well, I guess here I'm going to put my Thai basil. And luckily I have a nice mountain here that I'll just stretch on camera, and more roots. I'm telling you, mint, I wasn't kidding when it could be very invasive, because I'm willing to bet that a lot of these roots that are still submerged are all left over from the past that I pulled out. You think you got it all trimmed, but it just comes back and haunts you. as haunting as mint is going to be. All right, so we got our Thai basil here. Rosemary's there. Dill's going to be kind of tricky because I've had some issues with where I was going to be planting that in the past just because it wasn't growing as fruitfully as I thought it would. But maybe I'm going to try right here in between the rosemary and this spot, which probably looks like it's some leftover coriander. Funny, I thought that thing died out. But I suppose if the coriander's already there, then I'll just keep the plant right beside it so it's all consistent. Okay, got that. Okay. So we got the dill, and if this is a success for me, that means I can use it to do fresh pickles once again with fresh dill. And I'll put the sign right here so I know what the hell each plant is. So if my Thai basil is over here, I think I'm just gonna put my sweet basil right up front. Once again, this thing is pretty, like, of all the herbs over there, basil's like one of the most consistent ones that everyone's gonna like. Yeah, coriander I already went on a rant on, but it does have a unique flavor that's not for everybody, so I am cognizant of that fact. Basil though, you'll never see anybody who hates that stuff. Okay, so we got that there. So the only thing left in the herb is, well, in the herb garden is, oh yeah, the coriander. And luckily, like I said, I'm gonna keep it right beside this plant. You might notice that there's some random stones and rocks in here. That's because whenever I was working on some of my grass or even redoing the garden soil, there's some stones I pulled up that looked like they were just buried in here. But I guess stone is not the craziest thing you're gonna find. I pulled up like toys, lots of bricks in here, like a whole mess of stuff that you would think, why is this even buried in the yard? Oh yeah, the doorknob that I found buried here, like a closet doorknob, that was the most random thing that I saw. But I digress. All I could say now is, oh, I think I got a grub in here. Oh well, at least I'm not that obsessed with my lawn for now, so they make a hole here, it's not the end of the world. But on that note, we got all the herbs planted with a little bit of extra space in case I want to do something else later on. So let's move on to the rest of the garden. All right, just like last year, I think I'm going to use this spot here to put my cherry tomatoes. Got these random onions that are growing here, but I don't know how big they're going to get. I think what I'll try to experiment with is transplant it here and see if that does anything. Because if so, then that means I won't let them go to waste. Because I'm going to need a lot more space for my cherry tomatoes, or tomatoes in general. And I'll explain that in a second once I get this last onion out. Oh, how deep did this go? Okay, here we are. All right. Operation transplant is completed. So, let's get another hole dug up over here. More roots. I have no idea what this is from. More dirt. Okay, I think that's as good as it's gonna get, so let's grab the cherry tomato. There we go. 100 years of tomatoes, I guess. There we are. So that's been planted. But the one thing to remember too is that as this thing is growing, it's going to be pretty large and it might droop over. So in the case of tomatoes, you're gonna need to give it some support. Some people will tie it up to some stakes, but what I like to do is I like to use these vegetable cages that you could use specifically for tall stuff. You might notice I already have that with the asparagus, but I use these exclusively with my tomatoes also. And these are brand new because I actually bought a new set of them last year. The ones I was using prior were, I believe we've had them since at least 1990 when I was living at my first house with my parents, because I know we had the same ones. So those things I had were probably 30, 40 years. It's galvanized steel that probably rusted over time, so that meant it was probably going to be wearing out eventually. That's the thing, is galvanized steel is supportive, but it's supposed to prevent rusting. But we'll see how long these things will last. But yeah, cherry tomatoes are done. Now, I guess I could get my lettuce done on this side. Once again, just as a reminder, I have this cage here because I know that dang rabbits like Bugs Bunny are going to try to maybe eat this. So I want to protect this as much as possible. They might have some other animals that'll try to eat the other veggies, but if they try to bite my jalapenos, then, well, it's their own fault, not mine. I'll send my regards for their stomach afterwards. Okay, so I guess I should probably open this up too, and don't worry, I'm going to be dumping this later on. Ouch, poke myself. All right. So I'll just split these up. I got one here. And then I'm going to do the same for all the lettuce. It doesn't look like much because they are kind of small, but eventually over time, it's going to grow fantastically. Maybe too fantastically, because one thing you got to remember too when it comes to lettuce is it can actually grow too tall and flower, which means at that point it's not going to be very edible because it's going to be super bitter. Something to keep in mind. Okay, 1, 2, 3, yeah, 5 heads of lettuce, as expected. So I'll do the same thing, and then eventually they're all going to be done here. All right, I got my jalapenos all set up, so next thing I'm gonna do is get my cucumbers, and then that would be the last thing to do in the garden, minus the citronella geranium, but that I'm gonna put a little bit later on. So given the location, I think here's where I'm gonna put my trellis again, because once more, with the cucumbers, you're gonna wanna make sure you have a vine that it can attach to when it grows. Although, I kinda wondered maybe that the cherry tomato is gonna latch onto that too, but I guess we'll see when we do get there. Now, I'm just gonna do these in 4-step parts, like 1, 2, 3, 4, so I give it a little bit of space, and make a hole here, and then hopefully this doesn't mess up. Oops. These things always seem like that they're very fragile, so it's always a risk when you do plant them. I'm just hoping that with the way that it's in the ground, that it does spruce up. That's one here. Next one's gonna be like right here. Oh dear. All right, cucumber, don't fail me now. That is a very fine garden. And once again, just in case I get some other plants, like if I want to pick up a few more, or I get some donations from my aunts in case they bought a lot more for their garden than I expected, I have some space. So that's all done, but I am going to be taking care of a few other things here. Like I like to have my flower pots with a few annuals planted as well, so I get to do a few of my favorites. Red dahlias. Dahlias are actually one of my favorite plants, if I'm going to say so myself. I think I also got a impatient, oh yeah, Impatiens Harmony Violet. It looks like it's wilted, but I'm sure if I get it in the pot, then it's gonna look fantastic. I'm also gonna be using some Fresh Look Mix Celosias. These come in like a pack of 9, and my goal is to use it in one of my hanging pots there, so when I'm sitting down having a pint barbecuing, then it's gonna give me a nice amount of color on the side. Then for one of my others, ooh, a black petunia. This is one of the reasons I go to the market near my house, because some of the flowers they have are even more diverse, or like odd compared to what I could get at the box stores. Like the first time I ever saw these was probably the Jean Talon market, except having it close to home as opposed to going all the way there to carry flowers, it seemed like it's just easier for me. So the pots are going to be a little bit smaller, but the way that these things grow is that you only need 1, maybe 2 flowers in those, and then it's just going to get gigantic and it's going to look really nice. Oh, and I'm also contributing something for my sister. She liked these purple petunias, so I'm going to find a place to plant them for her. Super Cascade Blue. So overall, this has been a nice change of pace. I will be getting back to doing some wanders around the city for more explorations, but at least with this one, it was nice to do something at home, something quiet, something different, and kind of go back to my roots once again. So on that note, thanks for watching this latest edition of the Wandering Cheese Cafe. If you like what you see, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button below. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoy my antics, my wanders, my stories, and everything that comes with it. And if you have an idea for any future episodes, like places I could go to, things I could cook at home or do at home, leave in the comments section and I'll see what I could do. Till then, take care, see you next time, and happy summer to you all.